3, 2, 1.
Studio Classroom is recording.
Studio Classroom. Studio Classroom.
Please stand by.
Studio Classroom.
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Hello friends, and welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. We are so happy that you could join us today. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Anne-Marie. You know, recently I've been thinking about movies that were popular when I was growing up. I have so many good memories of going to the theater with my brother and seeing the latest Lord of the Rings movie.
You know, there were several popular series out around that time, weren't there? Like Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3. Do you remember anything about those movies?
Star Wars?
Yeah.
I didn't really get into Star Wars too much, but my brother liked it. He had the Legos, and I think he had a t-shirt or something like that. I remember there was a character called Jar Jar Binks. Well, how about you?
Jar Jar Binks. A lot of people say he kind of ruined those movies. Well, you know, in my opinion, those three movies, episodes 1, 2, and 3, were not nearly as good as the originals that were filmed in the 70s and 80s. That is episodes 4, 5, and 6. You should go check those ones out, friends, if you have not seen those yet. But that brings us to our lesson today.
Wait, Star Wars? Is that what our article is about today?
Well, part of our article actually is about Star Wars. We'll find out what that has to do with today's topic in an article called
Airspeeders. Don't go anywhere, friends, because today is a great day to learn something new.
So let's do that together.
Airspeeders. It's Star Wars all over again, in real life. It was 22 years ago that theater audiences rooted for Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, as he sought his freedom. In a rough and tumble race, the 9-year-old slave competed against more experienced pilots as he flew his pod racer across a desert on the planet Tatooine. In this galaxy far, far away, beating his competitors as they tried to cause collisions at high speeds was no mean feat. But through skillful navigation, Anakin won the race, ensuring his freedom. Audiences will have a chance to root again as we enter the next generation of sport, races for electric flying cars.
Hello everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 先来看 root for 这个片语动词，意思是支持或是加油。譬如 The whole school was rooting for Emily at the singing contest. 在歌唱比赛上，全校都在为 Emily 加油。或者是 Are you rooting for the Wei Chun Dragons or the Fubon Guardians? 你为魏全龙还是富邦悍将加油呢？再举个例句。Have you ever rooted for the bad guy when watching a movie? 你曾经在看电影时站在坏人那一边吗？接着来看 episode 这个名词，意思是指电视连续剧的一集。譬如 How many episodes of this program have you watched? 这个节目你已经看了几集？ Episode 也指一段经历或是情节。譬如How many episodes of depression has Elizabeth experienced? Elizabeth 的忧郁症已经发作过多少次？或者是 If there is another episode like the one in the conference room, I will quit. 如果下次再出现在会议室同样的情节，我就辞职不干了。Okay, let's get back to our teachers.
Well, we were rooting for you, Jack. That was a great episode of the Language Lab today. Let's get started with our lesson here, friends. Airspeeders. It's Star Wars all over again in real life. and you just read that paragraph about Star Wars and those AirPods or the pod racers. AirPods are quite different things, aren't they? AirPods are
That's something totally different.
what you use in your ears, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have different names for these things, like pod racer. The title of our lesson is Airspeeder. I guess you could use a similar name to call this object, but we have decided to call it Airspeeders, or it's called Airspeeders for a reason we'll find out later. However, let's take a look at this sentence pattern. It's something all over again. It's Star Wars all over again. That means it's like something, like a pop cultural reference like Star Wars, and it's happening again.
That's right, and we could use this sentence structure in other ways as well. For example, when I have a conversation with my cousin, I feel like it's reliving my childhood all over again.
Okay, because maybe when you're talking to this person, they just make you think of childhood memories,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. It's just bringing up those things that I haven't thought about in a while, and it feels like maybe it's happening again, and it's a happy thing.
Yeah, that's a happy thing, right? It could be a negative thing depending on the situation, and it depends on how you feel about Star Wars, right? We see it's Star Wars all over again in real life because our lesson is comparing something about Star Wars to something in our modern day. Okay, we're going to talk about that later. We read, it was 22 years ago that theater audiences rooted for Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, as he sought his freedom. Man, time flies, right? It's already been 22 years.
I can't even believe that was 22 years ago. And it seems like these Star Wars movies come out all the time.
Yeah.
Weren't there some that came out a few years ago?
Yeah, exactly. I think, hope they finished the franchise. Well, no, I think the ones recently were a little better than episodes 1, 2, and 3. However, these things seem like they've been going for ages, at least since the late 70s.
Yeah, they really have just keep expanding on the franchise. There is a phrase here in that first sentence I wanted to talk about, that is to seek freedom from. We see sought his freedom. Mm-hmm. If you want to say what the person is trying to get away from, you could put the word from on the end and then put what they're trying to get away from at the end.
Yeah, because you could just say that someone is seeking freedom. Okay, they're trying to get free, but what are they trying to break free from? That's when we would use that word, okay, to seek freedom from something. So he's trying to seek his freedom. You know that word menace, though? It always reminds me of another character.
Are you talking about Dennis the Menace?
I'm talking about Dennis the Menace. I believe that started out as a comic book character. They made a movie about him several decades ago as well. Dennis the Menace. A menace is somebody who is not doing pleasant things. He's often doing annoying things or menacing things. What we read here, in a rough and tumble race, the 9-year-old slave competed against more experienced pilots as he flew his pod racer, not AirPods, his pod racer across a desert on the planet Tatooine.
Tatooine. I'm a little bit confused about what this picture is doing here, Gabe. I see some people in a race wearing costumes.
Right, our lesson talks about this race from Star Wars, and so when I Googled Star Wars race, well, these are the kinds of pictures that came up because there are many races these days. People have marathons all over the world, right? Sometimes these races have a theme, and so sometimes even people dress up in different costumes to run in these races.
Well, I also have something here that you might recognize from that franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what this is called?
Yeah. A light sword, right?
A light sword. No, I think it's a light saber.
Ah, yes, a lightsaber.
When I was little, I used to think they were called lightsabers because they saved your life.
Yeah, and it does
That's
sound
not right.
it does sound like that, right?
Yeah.
I used to think the same thing, a lightsaber. Well, it's called a lightsaber. But our lesson continues here. In this galaxy far, far away, beating his competitors as they tried to cause collisions at high speeds was no mean feat. The use of the word mean here is kind of like small or insignificant. So if we say something is no mean feat, that means it's not an insignificant accomplishment. It is a very significant one.
That's right. We read on here, but through skillful navigation, Anakin won the race, ensuring his freedom. Audiences will have a chance to root again as we enter the next generation of sport, races for electric flying cars.
We've seen the word root twice so far in our lesson. People rooted for Anakin Skywalker. We can root again for somebody in future races. Let's see if we can learn about another root-related phrase right now.
Welcome to InfoCloud. Today, we'd like to talk about roots. Now, when you think of roots, what do you think of?
When I think of roots, I think of a tree. The roots of a tree grow deep into the ground. The roots absorb water and are the food supply for the tree.
Well, roots keep the tree strong and in the ground.
Today, we'd like to look at the phrase, put roots down.
When you put roots down, you settle in a place for a long time, and maybe you never move away.
Yes, it's like the roots of a tree keep it in place. When you put roots down, you stay in one place for a long time.
So let's use this phrase. After traveling the world for over 10 years, Charles decided it was time to stop and put roots down in a place. He chose a small town in the U.S. to put roots down.
When you put roots down in a place that you have moved to it means you connect with your new community.
That's right. You make friends. When you put roots down, you make a place feel like home.
中文有一句成语落叶归根，英文也有一个类似的用语 put roots down 向下扎根。这个用语是主要在表达你选择在一个地方长久居住，把那个地方当作你的家。Charles chose a small town to put roots down. Charles 选择了一个小镇在那里扎根。当你在一个地方 put roots down，那就代表你会融入到当地的生活，和当地的社区做连结，跟邻居建立关系，完全把那个地方当成你的家。这就是今天的 InfoCloud， 我们下次云端见。
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Welcome back to Studio Classroom. Friends, we earlier learned about a Star Wars race that people would be rooting for the pilots in. Now, what kinds of races can we enjoy in the future?
Oh, well, according to our article, we can enjoy electric flying car races. Is that right?
I think so. I hope so. That is the hope of an entrepreneur that we're going to learn about right now.
Airspeeders. It all began long ago when entrepreneur Matthew Pearson was a child. He dreamed of making flying cars a reality, and he has. In this galaxy, on planet Earth, the first electric flying race cars, Airspeeders, were tested at an undisclosed region of the Australian desert this past spring. Only Australia's Civil Aviation Safety Authority, CASA, was present to keep a watchful eye on the test flights. As soon as the cars were certified by CASA as safe, organizers began launching plans for electric flying car races in 3 locations around the world.
"接着我们来看 undisclosed 这个形容词，意思是未公开的或是秘密的。譬如 Matt Damon plans to go on vacation with his family at an undisclosed location. Matt Damon 计划和家人去一个秘密地点度假。或者是 Mr. Berger received an undisclosed sum of cash for his help with the project. Berger 先生因为协助这个案子而收到一笔未公开金额的现金。再举个例句 The kidnappers demanded an undisclosed amount of money from the family to get their little boy back. 绑匪要求被绑架的男童的家人拿出一笔保密金额的赎金。最后再来看 certify 这个动词，意思是证明或是保证。譬如 all of the products need to be certified as pesticide-free before we will sell them. 所有的产品都必须是无农药认证，我们才会卖。或者是 at the end of the year, the company has an accountant exam to certify that its accounts are accurate. 年底时，公司都会有会计查账，以确保账目的正确性。certify 的过去分词 certified 可以当形容词用，意思是有合格证书的，获得资格的。譬如 Only certified teachers are hired by that school. 那个学校只聘雇有合格认证的老师。Okay, let's get back to our teachers.
Thank you very much, Jack. Well, let's continue here with our lesson. Earlier, we talked about how there's going to be a new generation of racers that we can root for, and this is a generation of electric flying cars. We read here, it all began long ago when entrepreneur Matthew Pearson was a child. Now, before we continue, there are a couple things we could take a look at from that sentence. First of all, when we're telling a story and how something started, we can use the phrase, it all began. It all began when something happened. But let's take a look at the word entrepreneur here, because this refers to a person who starts their own business, taking on financial risks and hoping for a profit.
Here's an example sentence for you, friends. Being a brilliant entrepreneur, Scott built a company from scratch and made it profitable within the first year.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, that's an entrepreneur's dream and goal, right, is to make it really profitable as soon as possible, because being an entrepreneur and maybe having a startup business is no easy task. It is no mean feat.
And speaking of making your dreams a reality, we see a sentence right here after that first one where we see that pattern. He dreamed of making flying cars a reality, and he has. Another way to say something like that is making your dreams a reality. There are other things we can make a reality as well.
It's true, but we often talk about dreams, right? Making dreams come true or making them a reality. When I think of flying cars, I always think of the Back to the Future movies. Have you seen those, Anne-Marie?
I believe I've seen one of them, and it's been a while.
That's okay. I mean, you should watch maybe one or two again. They're kind of fun movies, and it combines a flying car with a time machine, and I think we all know that traveling back and forth in time is kind of impossible. Only God knows the past and the future. However, flying cars, even at the time when they were made, I think a lot of us were thinking this could come to be a reality one day.
And it sounds like that is exactly what is happening now. We read on, in this galaxy on planet Earth, the first electric flying race cars, Airspeeders, were tested as an undisclosed region of the Australian desert this past spring.
Well, you know, you see this picture behind us, and this is just an idea or a concept of what one of these flying cars might look like. I don't think it's one of the ones that Matthew Pearson created, okay? But they look similar to this. Okay, so they were tested at an undisclosed region. I love that. Of course, you have to be secretive about things. That's what I often think about. If something is undisclosed, someone is being secretive.
Now, I wonder why they did that. Why do you think they wanted to test those cars at this undisclosed location?
Yeah, well, they don't want everybody to know about it right away. You know, if they're going to make commercials or promote their product, they want to do that in a way that they can control. But there could be other reasons. Maybe they just didn't think about it. They just didn't tell a lot of other people. But we read here, only Australia's Civil Aviation Safety Authority, that is CASA, was present to keep a watchful eye on the test flights. Now, when I see those letters, CASA, I always think of the word for home in Italian or Spanish, because that is CASA.
Yeah, that's right. But here it's the Australia Civil Aviation Safety Authority.
Yeah, exactly. It has nothing to do with a home, But I just thought I'd mention that because I like the phrase mi casa tu casa. That is, my house is your house. But let's get back to aviation and these test flights because someone wanted to keep a watchful eye on them. If you keep an eye on something, that means you're watching it, you're paying attention to it. And if you're paying very close attention, we might add the word watchful. You keep a watchful eye on that thing.
This makes me think of the way I watch my kids sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Keep a watchful eye on them. It means you don't want them to, anything bad to happen to them, or you want to keep them away from danger, so you have to keep a watchful eye on them.
Yeah, just this summer we were out in the ocean and my youngest son started to lean his head back in the water, not realizing that if he put his head in, he might get some water in his mouth. So we had to keep a watchful eye on him that whole time. We couldn't even let our eyes go away for more than a second or two. Well, friends, we continue here. They were certified by the CASA as safe, and organizers began launching plans for electric flying car races in 3 locations around the world. Earlier, we found out that this was no insignificant accomplishment. Let's see how the word accomplishment is used in a skit.
Hello, I don't remember seeing you here before.
Oh, well, I'm new in town.
Oh, well, it's nice to meet you. You look like a successful guy.
Oh, well, yes, actually, I'm very successful.
That's wonderful. So tell me about some of your accomplishments.
Let's see, what have I achieved that I'm especially proud of?
Yes. Tell me some of your great accomplishments, some impressive successes.
My best accomplishments. It's hard to decide.
It is? Why is that?
Well, I have so many accomplishments, it's hard to choose the top ones.
Oh, really?
Yes, I graduated from a top university. It took a lot of effort, but I did it.
That's impressive.
And I started my own company. So I'm a very successful businessman. I'm proud of that accomplishment.
That's impressive too.
Oh, and I own a big, beautiful house. It's paid for.
Wow, you do have a lot of accomplishments.
Yes, and how about you? What's your greatest accomplishment?
Finding you. You're not married, are you?
Okay, friends, there were a lot of words that appeared in our lesson. Of course, an article is full of words. So let's talk about some of those words today. Let's play the word association game. How does that sound?
Okay, so that's where one of us says a word and then the other says the first thing they think of when they hear that word, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's the first word, phantom.
Phantom. I think of ghost.
Ghost. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
What's another word?
Pilot.
Aircraft. Good. Okay, how about galaxy?
Galaxy. Outer space.
Excellent.
Let's try entrepreneur.
Ooh, business.
Okay.
What about desert?
Desert.
Desert.
Sand.
I think of dessert.
You think of dessert when you hear desert?
Yeah, they sound so similar, right? But one key thing to remember is the spelling is a little different, friends. Of course, if you want to have dessert that tastes better and it has 2 S's to remind you of how much more you want it. Well, friends, that is all the time that we have for today. Of course, there are so many other words that you can play this game with, but we have more to learn about this lesson. So be sure to come back next time right here to Studio Classroom. Goodbye.
A good friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.